The date is Tuesday, February 11. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. As the coronavirus alert continues, Jamaica has isolated a second person that displayed elevated symptoms after recently arriving from China. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton provided an update at a press conference at the ministry's New Kingston offices on Monday.
This morning, just after 8 p.m., one person in quarantine, having spent approximately 8 days in quarantine, was detected to have had an elevated temperature and as a consequence will be isolated as per our protocols. Samples have been taken and will be processed by the National Influenza Center and sent overseas for testing.
Dr. Tufton said that since the country has been placed on high alert for the virus, this is the first instance where a patient was moved from a quarantined status to isolation.
This is the first time that we have detected symptoms in any patient or person who is being monitored, and have had to move a patient or individual from quarantine to isolation. This represents the first time that we have moved someone from quarantine to isolation. The ministry will closely monitor this patient for any further development, and we will of course advise the public as time progresses.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Mackenzie gave a breakdown on the differences between quarantined and isolated patients.
When we place persons in quarantine, what we want to do is to monitor on a daily basis and to ensure that if there are any symptoms that are developing, we pick it up early before the person reach to a point where they are coughing or sneezing and are more likely to be able to spread the virus. So in effect, the quarantine situation that we have now has picked up some early changes that we are monitoring, and as per our protocol, this person has been isolated. So under isolation conditions now, if this person continues to develop symptoms, then this person would be separated from other persons who they could pass the virus onto, and they will be nursed in a controlled situation to prevent any spread, either to other members of the public or to healthcare professionals. I want to just reinforce the value, as Minister has said, of the quarantine process. It's very important that we pick up these symptoms early so that we can isolate these patients.
The St. Joseph's Hospital is now one of the designated facilities being used by health authorities to house quarantined persons who may have been exposed to the novel coronavirus. However, there have been safety concerns raised by residents in the vicinity of the hospital. Residents in Vineyard Town in St. Andrew on Monday afternoon protested at the entrance of the hospital to voice their objection. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Mackenzie addressed the questions of safety at Monday's press conference.
The St. Joseph's Hospital compound is a large compound, and there is one specific area that we would want to use for quarantine. Not all businesses on the property are going to be affected, and so therefore many persons are concerned about the medical center and the doctors that are operating there. They're also concerned about the casualty department. The medical center will not be closed. This is some distance away from where we are going to be quarantined, or where we intend to quarantine persons. So we don't believe that there is any risk that is posed to these persons at the medical center. The casualty department is actually on the same building, adjoining the area, and therefore we are relocating the casualty department to the medical center. The virus is transmitted by droplets. The method of transmission means that the virus is present in droplets that come from a person's mouth as they sneeze or as they cough. These droplets will not land further than about 3 feet from where the person is. okay? So therefore, there are several hundreds of feet between where the medical center is and where these persons would be quarantined. There are several hundreds of feet between where those persons are and where the roadway is. Several hundreds of feet between where those persons are and where other houses and business places are. We do not perceive a risk to the surrounding community.
Meanwhile, World Health Organization WHO officials says the novel coronavirus is capable of spreading through human-to-human contact, droplets carried through sneezing or coughing, and germs left on inanimate objects. Symptoms can include a sore throat, runny nose, fever, or pneumonia, and can progress to multiple organ failure or death in some severe cases. Dr. Christopher Tufton gave the public a breakdown on the number of persons who recently returned to the island from China.
So between January 23rd and February 8th, 116 persons arrived in Jamaica who had been in China 14 days prior to arrival here. One person had mild symptoms and was immediately isolated. That person's symptoms have since improved. Of the 115 remaining, 27 were not landed. So 27 were not landed. 78 have been assessed as having low risks and have been quarantined at home for follow-up with the local health departments. 10 persons up to February 9th were in quarantine in facilities operated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The UK has proceeded with planned deportation of a number of Jamaicans despite partial court reprieve. However, it is not yet clear how many deportees are on the flight scheduled to land in Jamaica on Tuesday. And the government has been given 30 days to respond to the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA's call to address security and discipline issues affecting the nation's schools. Speaking at a press conference in Kingston on Monday, JTA head Owen Speed said the association is calling for trained security personnel for schools, enhancement of resolution mechanisms to support the institutions, and for the introduction of more timeout facilities. Furthermore, the JTA wants a compensation mechanism to be introduced for schools personnel who are injured on the job and for legal sanctions against individuals who commit breaches on school premises. A study conducted by the Inter-American Development Bank (IDB) says 14 in every 1,000 children in Jamaica have been diagnosed with an intellectual disability. State Minister of Labor and Social Security Xavier Main notes recent intervention by the IDB for children with intellectual disabilities locally will go a long way in improving lives and reducing stigma. And he says the Disabilities Act will be in full force in short order. Minister Main, in identifying the challenges facing persons with disabilities, says they'll be extending the services of the Early Stimulation Program to 6 other parishes. He says the ministry is also working with the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities to allow persons with disabilities to access grants and funding for micro and small businesses. Government Senator Dr. Sapphire Longmore used her State of the Nation debate to call on Jamaicans to be more compassionate towards mentally ill persons by trying to help them rather than mistreating or shunning them.
Mental health and the care of the mental capacity of our people is paramount, as we now must be appreciating. There is no good health without good mental health.
Dr. Longmore gave an encounter with a person with mental challenges.
This is driving through Norbrook, and that fence is what blocks, what borders off the golf course. And what you see here, that's a vehicle, and what you see here is a man tied to the grill. And I was literally driving with my sons on a Sunday morning. And this is what I encountered about 11 o'clock one morning. And when I pulled over, I was like, what happened? And he's he's cussing and he's fighting and he's struggling. And he said, and I knew immediately that something was wrong with him mentally. And he said, me sick in my head. And me I get off. And my father come tie me up here, so. And I asked him for the father's phone number, and I called the man immediately. And the father explained to me, he said, Doc, me just can't take it no more. He come after with me with machete. He threaten his mother, this, that. And I said to him, I said, no, but this can't be the way to handle it. If you need to ask the police to come and help you, you do that. And he assured me that he was going to come and retrieve him, and I told him where to take him, etc. And when I passed back about a half an hour, he had been removed.
Dr. Longmore noted that many persons are diagnosed with and suffering from depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. She therefore suggested the implementation of strategic plans for mental health, which were initially presented in 1997 and came up again in 2006. These propose an increase in the number of community health aides and mental health officers.
When we hear of the heinous acts of just random killings, this is not just an arbitrary situation. This is a mentally ill society. There are sociopaths and psychopaths amongst us. Some of my professors, like Professor Hicklin, have been preaching this for decades. I see where, when I look back, strategic plans for mental health have been laid out from in the 90s. The last such was in 2006. It is there what we ought to be doing to protect our society. It is time for us to put funding behind mental health.
Residents of Manchester are being invited to learn more about human trafficking during a forum to be held at the Northern Caribbean University, NCU, in Mandeville on February 12. The Anti-Trafficking Persons Symposium, which gets underway at 9 a.m., is being organized by the Office of the Custos Rhetorium for Manchester in collaboration with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the JCF. It will feature presentations by local and international experts. Custos of Manchester, Garfield Green, said at the end of the symposium, selection of one individual from each participating institution or group will be designated and they will be seen as an ambassador. Persons can register for the symposium at admin@manchesterjamaica.com. The Jamaica Stock Exchange Combined Index declined marginally on Monday with an advanced decline ratio of 24.42. It declined by 0.28%. The JSE Main Market Index declined by 0.3%, while the Junior Market Index advanced by 5.80 points or 0.19%. The JSE US Dollars Equity Index declined by 14.06 points or 6.10% to close at 216.52. 74 stocks traded, 24 advanced, 42 declined, 8 traded firm. Volume leaders were Sagicor Select Financial, followed by Wigton and Sagicor Select Manufacturing. The US dollar is being traded at $142.27, down by 6 cents. The Canadian dollar is being traded at $107.21, up from $105.84. And the British pound sterling is being traded at $183.29, down from $184.73. That data taken from the Bank of Jamaica's daily exchange trading summary. In regional news, a cruise ship carrying more than 3,000 passengers and a 1,000-member crew has been denied entry into Trinidad and Tobago due to an outbreak of gastroenteritis on board the vessel. The MV Caribbean Princess was scheduled to arrive in Port of Spain on Monday. According to the press, the cruise ship was also denied approval to berth at the Bridgetown port by the government of Barbados due to the outbreak. Health Minister Terence Delising said the decision, quote, was taken as a precautionary measure to protect the Trinidad and Tobago population, end quote. The Barbados government recently hosted a town hall meeting on the novel coronavirus at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. We get the details in this report from Jamal Weeks via the Barbados Government Information Service.
Recently, the Ministry of Health and Wellness held a workshop and training session on the 2019 novel coronavirus at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. The session sought to share information on how to minimize the risk of the importation of the virus into Barbados and educate the public on how to detect the early signs of illness. During the session, several misconceptions about the virus were clarified.
What you will see in the media is there's a lot of deadly coronavirus, and I think it's hyping people up to think that once you have this virus, it's practically a death sentence. It does not come near to what SARS did. It does not come near to Ebola. Yes, persons are getting ill. The majority of persons do remain well. The majority of persons are expected to recover.
Officials also reassured persons of government's dedication to public health and safety.
Surveillance is incredibly important in detecting early the onset of disease within our population. One of the key things that we are focusing on in Barbados is improving our surveillance so we can detect early the presence of the 2019 nCoV should we be exposed, and mounting an appropriate and timely response.
On Monday, the Guyana Department of Energy announced the completion of a local content policy to guide the country's burgeoning oil production. News Source Guyana's Gordon Mosley has that report.
The Department of Energy today announced that a local content policy for the oil and gas sector has been completed and printed.
Hot off the press, so it now is actually a deliverable.
Head of the Department of Energy, Dr. Mark Bino. He also promised that a full policy will be released to the media soon. Dr. Bino explained to reporters that the policy remains a fit-for-purpose one, which balances the alignment between the government's policy goals while maintaining consistency with Guyana's international and regional trade and economic cooperation obligations. There have been calls for a local content policy to be put in place before Guyana started oil production. The country started oil production back in December without the full policy in place. Dr. Bino today outlined that there are several initiatives covered by the local content policy, including a number of those that offer advancement for Guyanese citizens in the oil and gas sector.
It promotes education, inclusion, and advancement of Guyanese persons who demonstrate expertise and experience required to participate in the petroleum industry. It ensures participation of Guyanese persons in employment opportunities. It assures capable Guyanese suppliers of contracting and procurement opportunities within the petroleum sector, inside and outside of Guyana.
He went on to explain that a local content policy also pushes for and ensures the stimulation of cost benefits for the oil and gas sector and enhances alignment with good industry standards in the petroleum sector.
It also promotes world-class capacity enhancement and high-quality governance in key state institutions. The Department of Energy has been working with the operators to commence reporting on local content performance as per the matrices in this new local content policy.
There are over 1,900 Guyanese directly employed in the petroleum sector, Dr. Bino revealed,
with 75% of these being in the skilled and professional categories, with 100% basic skills being supplied by Guyanese. The representation of these employed in the sector came mainly from regions 4, 3, and 6. Additionally, the companies have engaged over 750 Guyanese vendors and spent over $120 million in the fourth quarter of 2019.
Meanwhile, Guyana is expected to lift its first 1 million barrels of oil next week, and systems are in place for that, Dr. Bino said. He noted that his department has been making progress in a number of areas, including monitoring and cost recovery. The ExxonMobil company has already made 16 oil finds in Guyana, with an estimated 8 billion barrels.
We go back to Trinidad and Tobago, where there is tension in the Public Transport Center. On Monday, bus services by the Public Transport Service Corporation were disrupted because of industrial action by employees. The PTSC has issued an official statement warning of a disruption to its services and advised commuters to make alternative transportation arrangements. In sports, 16 finals are down to be completed in Tuesday's boys' eliminations of the County of Cornwall Athletics Association Western Championships set for Herbert Morrison Technical. At least 36 schools are expected to take part in the championships, which is a qualifier for the ISA Boys and Girls Athletics Championships set for next month. St. Elizabeth Technical High School and Rossies High School will seek to defend their respective boys and girls titles in the three-day championships that will continue on Thursday, with the girls' eliminations at Rossies in Lucy and the final on a Saturday at St. Elizabeth Technical High School Sports Complex in Santa Cruz. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks for watching.